Welcome back to the Gearhead Fellowship channel, where today we are coming to a close on the 204R transmission. We're putting in a manual valve body from TCI and going over all the details for that. Stick around. So here we have our parts laid out to get ready to put in our full manual valve body. We got our manual valve body from TCI, all 15 valve body bolts. We got 4 long ones and 11 short ones. Our S-link to hook into the gear selector, detent, and the roller for that. That'll all go back in place. We got our 3-4 accumulator support plate and our 1-2 accumulator housing, as well as our new, I guess you could call it a separator plate. It's a dead soft aluminum plate from TCI with a gasket that's riveted on both sides, so you kind of can't get it wrong. So these are our parts and pieces that we're going to use to assemble the valve body into the bottom of the transmission. We've finished the whole valve train, or the gear train front to back. We've actually got the governor into the backside, which really there's not a lot of glamorous footage to show around that. It's just inserting the governor, new gasket, and 4 bolts, no modifications there. The new TCI valve body is going to be bypassing the governor. The governor is no longer going to have any responsibility in governing the transmission. It's just going to be transmitting information from the tail shaft of the transmission to the speedometer gear. That's all that's really going to be doing from here on out. And this valve body is just going to go right into gear as soon as we select it. It totally eliminates the throttle valve assembly. There are no check balls with this new valve body. So it totally eliminates a lot of that stuff. It also eliminates the 1-2 accumulator and the 3-4 accumulator, which, if you recall, that was one of the weird things I mentioned. Hopefully you can see this, but here is the 3-4 and 1-2, the 3-4 accumulator support plate, and you can see right here it's all galled up. It's because from Monster Transmission, they had a dual spring sitting in there. It was galling into the housing. It was, time bomb. I don't know why they had that set up like that, but I'm glad I'm getting it all corrected. So as we're getting ready to get started, I just wanted to show you one thing here before I start to cover parts up. Here's the original separator plate. And I know it might be a little hard to see. 15 of these holes are bolt holes. And you can see the new separator plate, and you can see how very few relief holes and passages there are on the new separator plate. So this is going to eliminate a lot of the functions in the transmission. People ask, well, what kind of shift kit you putting in? This is about the most aggressive shift kit you can get, folks. No accumulators to soften any shifts. A high pressure pump putting all the pressure right to it. Only manual circuits are being used in the valve body, and a very quick response. So how we start off with this is we actually get the plate into position here, and we're going to insert or put up the support plate for the 3-4 accumulator. Notice we didn't have any 3-4 accumulator in there. And get our holes lined up, and we basically install the 3-4 support and put the small bolt hole right in here. And these are 10mm bolts. They're the same ones that came out originally. We're just indexing that. That's going to help secure things in place. And then we will go ahead, and I've got my accumulator, 1-2 accumulator body in place. There's 3 different, or at least 2 different size bolts, 3 short and 1 long. I've got them already kind of indexed to their proper positions. So we'll just move things around a little bit until we can get those bolts started. That way we know they're in place. And right now I'm not torquing anything down. We're going to wait until we have the whole unit in place before we go to torque anything. Alright, so the TCI valve body actually comes with, obviously it comes with directions, and you get down to step 9 before you even start putting the new valve body in. They had servo modifications, and most of it was taking everything apart. So for right now, we're just going to snug stuff just like so, and we've got that in place now. Now the next step here is going to be a little bit tricky. Let's see if I can do it on camera like this. We've got our detent roller here, and we've got to get the new valve body in place along with the manual valve right here indexed properly on this S-link. That's part of the factory piece that came out. And so I'm gonna insert that into position. Let's see here. It might be simpler to try to insert it here and bring it up. It's the first time for me, folks, so glad you're joining me for it. Like all the moral support I can get. And we'll take that and we're just going to rotate that down into place. And I think, not pinching my glove, that is about it. That went a lot better than I expected it to. Okay, so we got 4 large bolts. They go right in here. And again, we're not going to force anything. We're just going to get them started by hand, make sure we're not cross-threading anything. Obviously, it's an aluminum transmission case. We don't need to be over-torquing and bashing things around to get them to work. So go ahead and just get these bolts kind of started right here. We might need to back up and pull a bolt out of here or there because I still need to put in the electronics for the lockup, which isn't all that much to it either. So we'll go ahead and just kind of get these bolts started. Now, a couple other little notable points that we've got. You know, you don't want to tighten anything up. You want to allow it a little bit of flexibility so that you can get all the bolt holes in place. So, and now you can see that as you move the gear selector, you're moving that valve back and forth. And this is actually what's going to be controlling our gear shifts now completely, which does the same thing in the factory system. You might say, well, that moves pretty easy. Usually it's like a click, click, click. Well, that's where this comes into play, folks. I'm going to show you this in the teardown, but it's the detent roller. And what we'll do is we insert that through here. And insert a bolt right down in. So we've used our 10mm socket and we've torqued down all our bolts for our valve body. The TCI install instructions say to install everything to 10 foot-pounds of torque. Now factory spec is like 100 inch-pounds on the short bolt over here on the accumulator support, and then everything else 140 inch-pounds or close to 15 foot-pounds of torque. Since TCI's got this dead soft aluminum seal that they put in between the valve body and the case, I'm inclined to go with their recommendation of doing everything to 10 foot-pounds. So everything's set up at 10 foot-pounds. Theoretically, at this point in time, if you had a standard valve body that you put in here, you should be able to put in compressed air right here in this hole and check second gear, check the band apply off the servo like we did earlier without the valve body. You should be able to come right here and check third gear apply on the direct clutch. And you should be able to come right here and check the fourth gear clutch apply, excuse me. That doesn't work. All this stuff is empty because the manual functions on this valve body, so none of that's in place. You also notice we've got things blocked off here. We don't have a balance tube that goes from one end of the valve body to the other, as you might be used to seeing. That's different. And we don't currently have a pressure switch in place for the third, fourth gear lockup. Remember, we're going to be setting up a full manual lockup system, and there'll be, I think that we'll have that on their next video, showing how we set up the electronics and everything for the new lockup system and the solenoid install and all that. I hope you enjoyed today's installment as we installed that manual valve body from TCI and went over all the details. And next time you can expect us to finish up with the trans, putting in the lockup equipment, all the electronics for that, and then getting ready to install the transmission in the car. Thanks for joining us. If you like what you're seeing, click the like button. Go ahead and click subscribe if you want to see more videos, and thanks for joining us once again.